The months of cold have fallen across the land. Polar winds from the south have changed the outdoors from warm and inviting to dry and cold. A wintry frost has erased all signs of the fall garden. We live in a temperate forest in Argentina, South America, where winter occurs during the months of June, July, and August. My name is Chloe, and this is the story of our homestead and how we use the resources the forest provides to heat our home all winter long. The process of collecting fuel for the wood stove actually began a while ago. In fact, much of the logs we are burning these days, my partner Jonah cut last winter, and the kindling I have been collecting for the past few months. We weren't always so organized with our winter preparations. Over the years, we have learned a lot about managing firewood and how much we really need to heat this cold and shady house. 5 years ago, we were traveling and working on farms around the Americas. Hoping to find a farm where we could stay for a few months, we asked around for opportunities in Jonah's home province in Argentina. Luckily, we found an opportunity to be caretakers of this farm. What we thought would be a few months has turned into a few years of taking care of this land in exchange for living in the small house at the center of the farm rent-free. The first year, we arrived in the middle of winter and suffered through bitter cold. The second year, we installed a wood stove and did our best with the few hand tools we had at the time. After years of living and traveling in the tropics, we didn't know much about living in a temperate, mountainous climate. We had a small handsaw, a hatchet, a wheelbarrow, a couple of baskets, and a forest of fallen branches and trees to sort through. I collected a lot of branches, and Jonah did a lot of sawing and chopping by hand. Here you can see him stacking up logs along the front of our house, which is north-facing and catches the most sun. In the northern hemisphere, this would be the south-facing wall. Besides being a good spot to dry wood, this wall of logs looks really beautiful. Smells super nice as it dries and is a testament to Jonah's months of hard work and dedication. Each type of wood is different, but in general, picking up wood in the forest during the day to burn that very night in the fireplace creates a lot of smoke and just doesn't burn as well as mature wood. We have the advantage that in most of South America, the rainy season occurs during the summer, and winter tends to be sunny but cold. Even so, winter sun is weak compared to the summer sunshine. We learned through firsthand experience that logs, even when chopped this finely, need a lot of time to dry. So we try to keep a reserve of logs that have been drying for a year or more, as well as doing the majority of sawing in summer and autumn, when sunshine is abundant and helps dry out the wood before storing in the woodshed. Sometime in our third year of living here, we finally acquired a battery-powered chainsaw. This changed everything. More than freeing up a lot of time and physical effort, the chainsaw allowed us to utilize harder woods that are abundant on this land. In the forest, there are a lot of different non-native trees like pine, orange, cottonwood, and mulberry. Through experimentation, we learned that each type of wood has its unique virtues. Pine burns really well because it has a lot of natural resins that smell nice as it dries and as it burns. Logs like this can only be thrown in the fire once kindling and smaller sticks are burning strongly. Once alight, pine makes great embers that burn hot for a long time. Cottonwood is a really lightweight wood, and large branches and entire trees fall down quite frequently. The fallen wood has a consistency like layers of cardboard, so it's great for mixing in with hardwoods, but doesn't burn very long on its own. Orange, like most fruit trees, has a dense wood that burns for a long time, so we often make blocks like these that go on top of already smoldering embers. Mulberry is probably the most common tree on the farm. We have even had to cut down a few that were leaning over the house or blocking the sunshine. Mulberry takes a long time to dry, and it's really fibrous and difficult to cut without power tools. Allowing wood to dry long enough is key to burning hot fires that keep the house warm without filling the interior with smoke. That is why stockpiling wood for months or even years is essential, especially in humid climates like this one. As you can see, Jonah does the majority of chopping of logs. I do my part by collecting fallen branches and kindling. Most days, I take walks around the trails to gather up twigs, sticks, and branches to bring back to home base. This is super important not only for heating the house, but also for keeping piles of dried timber from piling up and becoming a fire hazard. In my opinion, part of the increase in wildfires is a result of most of the developed world turning to gas and electric heating rather than heating primarily with fire. But just like rain, wind, and earthquakes, wildfires are a part of the natural cycle of life. Just like a tree grows, falls down, and nourishes the soil. Everything from our reliance on wood for heat to naturally occurring fire is part of the cycle of life. This tree has been slowly falling for years and has finally touched ground. As the tree decomposes, it is creating habitat for all kinds of insects, birds, reptiles, and probably small mammals too. For the most part, we just let it be habitat and collect only a small portion of the exterior wood. Even dead branches that have been drying on the ground for a while should spend some time protected from the elements before burning. So, after being broken up, these twigs and other kindling go into our makeshift woodshed to dry out completely. They will be used up during the next weeks and months. The sun sets so early in winter, which means much more time spent indoors. As the fire crackles, the moon is perfect for baking, crafting, or some other cottagecore activity. As this is meant to be a more practical vlog, I wanted to share a very practical craft: homemade fire starters. Despite all our efforts to dry logs and kindling, there are humid days or misty nights when starting a fire is a challenge. So I like to make these fire starters and keep a dozen or more on hand at any given time. The ingredients are few and mostly recycled. Sawdust that is a byproduct of cutting wood with a chainsaw, bits of paper from craft projects, egg carton, wax drippings in the bottom of candles, wick included. I started by melting down the wax by setting the metal container full of candle ends on top of the fireplace. Meanwhile, I prepared the ingredients. The egg carton acts as a mold for the waxy ingredients. Just in case, I always like to have a tray of some kind underneath in the event that the wax overflows. In each segment of egg carton, I filled about halfway with saw shavings and pieces of paper. Once the wax melted completely, I poured it into each segment of the egg carton until nearly full. Then I set the whole project aside to cool and solidify. With all the recycled wax used up, I also took advantage of my crafty mood to make a few candles with a mix of 80% beeswax to 20% soy wax. I used candle molds that I bought online with a thin wooden skewer, the ones you might use for making kebabs, to create a space where the wick will go when the wax is cooled. I set these all aside until the next day when I dismolded the wax candles and set out to separating the fire starters using a box cutter, very carefully so as not to cut myself or the table. The fire starters are done and ready to use whenever needed. They are ideal for setting in a pile of kindling to get a fire going. The little pieces of paper and carton light right away, and the wax keeps the fire going until the wood has begun burning steadily. Preparing for winter takes a lot of time. I totally understand why many people opt for electric or gas heating, but this house is old and we have a lot of wood and a desire to live this way. Right now we are working on building our very own small home and with more windows and thermic walls so that we can harness the heat of the sun and hopefully rely less on fire alone for heating. Even so, fire will always be a part of our lives. It is so cozy to sit beside the fireplace at night, reading, talking, drinking tea, and enjoying our time together. I hope you have enjoyed this practical cottagecore vlog, and as always, happy crafting!